It was a rainy Tuesday morning in a quiet suburb just outside of Portland, Oregon. The kind of morning that made the world feel gray, not just in the sky, but in the heart too. Madison Blake sat curled up in her favorite corner of the couch, a knitted blanket draped over her legs, watching raindrops race down the living room window. She held a half-full mug of lukewarm coffee in her hand, not because she wanted to drink it, but because the warmth felt like the only thing grounding her. Madison was 34, a freelance graphic designer who once brimmed with color and ideas, but lately felt like every canvas she opened on her laptop was just another blank reminder of how lost she felt. 3 months ago, her fiancé, Dylan, called off their engagement. No real explanation, just a sudden drift, like he had outgrown their plans without warning. Since then, everything had felt a little less bright, a little less full. She went through the motions, met deadlines, responded to emails, smiled at the right times, but inside, she was unraveling. Her friends had tried everything: movie nights, surprise visits, long talks over wine. But healing couldn't be rushed, and Madison knew it. Still, that didn't stop the loneliness from settling in like an unwelcome guest who refused to leave. On this particular day, she scrolled through her old photos. Her and Dylan at the beach, laughing, wind in their hair. Her family last Christmas, all in matching sweaters. Her late grandmother sitting on the porch swing, smiling with her eyes the way only grandmothers could. That one made her pause. Grandma May. Grandma May had passed away 2 years ago, but her voice lingered in Madison's memory like a melody you couldn't forget. She was the kind of woman who never raised her voice, but somehow always commanded attention. Her strength was subtle, quiet, but steady, like the lighthouse you didn't notice until you were lost at sea. Whenever Madison used to feel down, she'd call Grandma May. And Grandma would always say the same thing in her sweet Southern accent. Whenever you feel sad in life, always remember, sugar, you made it through worse, and you're still standing. That says something about you. Madison smiled faintly at the memory. Her grandmother had a way of making even heartbreak sound survivable. She closed her laptop and stood up, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Something about that photo called to her. She walked to the attic, a place she rarely visited, and opened a dusty old trunk with her grandmother's initials carved on top. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, all addressed to her. Some were written when Madison was just a child. Others from her teenage years. And a few marked, to be opened when you need it most. Madison opened the first of those. My dearest Maddie, if you're reading this, I imagine life has knocked you off your feet a bit. And that's all right. It has a way of doing that. But remember, baby girl, even the strongest trees sway in the wind. That doesn't make them weak. It makes them alive. She read the entire letter, tears pooling in her eyes, not because it made her sad, but because it made her feel understood, even across time. Each line felt like a hug from the past, like her grandmother had somehow known she would need these words long after she was gone. Over the next few weeks, Madison read every letter. Each one contained a story, a piece of advice, or a gentle reminder of who she was. One told the tale of when Grandma May lost her first job and thought her life was over, only to find that it led her to the career she loved. Another shared the heartbreak of losing a childhood friend and how she had learned to carry love and grief together, not one instead of the other. But the last letter, dated exactly 1 year before her grandmother passed, was the one that changed everything. My darling Madison, I don't know what the world looks like for you today. Maybe the sun is shining, maybe it's pouring. But either way, I want you to look in the mirror and really see yourself. You've got my eyes, your mama's kindness, and a heart bigger than the Atlantic Ocean. Life will knock you down. That's not a maybe, that's a promise. But sadness isn't a sign you've failed. It's proof you cared deeply, that you risked love, loss, and hope. And when it gets too heavy, I want you to take a deep breath and remember this. You are still becoming. Don't you dare give up before the magic begins. Madison clutched that letter like a lifeline. That evening, she did something she hadn't done in months. She took out her sketch pad. No pressure to create a masterpiece, just to draw whatever came to her. She began sketching her grandmother's porch. The swing, the vines of jasmine, the old wind chime that sounded like laughter. She sketched until her hand ached and her eyes blurred. But for the first time in months, she felt something lift. Days turned into weeks, and her drawings turned into a new project. A series she titled Letters to Myself, inspired by her grandmother's words. She posted one on her art account, thinking nothing of it. But the response was immediate. Comments poured in. This brought me to tears. Thank you for sharing. I lost my grandma last year. This feels like a letter from her. You don't know how much I needed this today. And just like that, Madison realized her sadness wasn't a barrier, it was a bridge. Her pain had a purpose. It allowed her to connect with others who were hurting, who needed hope, who needed a reminder. She began writing her own letters, pairing them with her art. Short messages like, "Whenever you feel sad, remember that storms make trees take deeper roots. It's okay to feel lost. Sometimes the map is being redrawn. You are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress." With every letter she posted, her audience grew. Not just in numbers, but in spirit. People shared their own stories of loss, resilience, and recovery. Her DMs were filled with messages of gratitude, not for fixing their problems, but for making them feel less alone. And through it all, Madison healed. She didn't forget Dylan, but the pain stopped being sharp. It dulled into something she could carry without it breaking her. She didn't have all the answers, but she stopped looking for them. Instead, she focused on what she could do: wake up, create, share, and keep moving forward. 1 year later, she stood in a small gallery downtown, surrounded by her artwork. Letters to Myself had become not just a project, but an exhibit. People walked through, reading her grandmother's words paired with her art, pausing to wipe away tears or smile softly in reflection. Her parents came, proud and misty-eyed. Old friends flew in. Even strangers who had been following her journey online showed up, thanking her in person. And in the corner of the room, by a small display of the original handwritten letters, stood a plaque that read, "Whenever you feel sad in life, always remember, you're still becoming, and the world is better with you in it." May Carter, 1928 to 2023. As Madison stood there, watching people connect with her story, she felt the warmth of something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because she understood now that sadness wasn't the end. It was part of the story, and she wasn't done writing it.